Hello friends, I want to specially welcome you to this maiden edition of Freeing All Nations International. This is a platform where we try to clarify assumptions and misconceptions about the workings of God and His power of creation. And to start this up, we'll be looking at a very critical topic: in the beginning. The emphasis here will be on the creation of man. According to Genesis chapter 1 verse 26, God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the earth. Let them multiply and fill the earth." Now, this scripture opens our eyes to two very key things. The first is how man was created, and the second is the purpose for which this created man was to serve on earth. So, man was to be created in the image and the likeness. So man had to bear both God's image and his likeness for him to be able to fulfill his purpose of dominating the earth. Now in Genesis chapter 1 verse 27, God took a step further by creating man. And it says, the verse 27 says, God created man in his own image. In his image created them, male and female. Now our concern here is not about on the male and female part, but the fact that God decided to create man in phases. So this is phase 1, where man was created in God's image, but not the likeness. So man was to be created in God's image and likeness, but God began by creating first the spiritual man in his image. So, but remember, man's purpose was to dominate the earth. And so if a spiritual man could not do this, it had to be a physical man with the ability to interact with the physical world. And to remedy this, in Genesis chapter 2 verse 7, God now formed Adam out of the dust of the earth, breathed into his nostrils, and he became a living soul. It was this Adam that was imbued with the capacity and the ability to interact with the natural world, with the earth. So the first man, which was created in Genesis 1:27, was now fused into the second component of man, which was the physical one, to enable communication with God. However, this man, Adam, was stationed in the garden. And because he was stationed in the garden, he could not dominate the earth. Why? Because he lacked the second aspect of God's trait, God's character, which would enable him to fulfill his purpose, which is God's likeness. Genesis chapter 3 verse 1 to 6 introduced us to something very unusual, a conversation between the serpent and the woman Eve. The serpent demanded to know what will happen if Adam and Eve ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The woman said, "In the day that we eat of it, we shall surely die." The serpent said, "No, God knows that in the day you eat of it, you shall become like God." You know the rest of the story? Eve found the tree appealing to the eyes, so she decided to reach out for the fruit. She ate of it and kept some for Adam, who also came back and ate. And then they discovered that their eyes were opened. So in Genesis chapter 3 verse 22, when God will give his own verdict, he declared, "Behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil." Now this is surprising, because when God proposed to make man in his own image according to his likeness in Genesis 1:26, he never mentioned that the man will have to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil for him to assume his own likeness. Yet, it was the serpent who first introduced us to the fact that man will only have to come to that, to share in the nature and character of God after eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. When he said that God knows that in the day you eat of it, you shall become like God. Now, man coming to this understanding, this knowledge of good and evil, actually put him on the pedestal to beginning the journey to fulfilling his purpose. Because if you read in the next verse, which is Genesis 3 verse 23, it records that God chased man out of the Garden of Eden to go and till the earth. So it means that Genesis 1:26 began to be fulfilled from Genesis 3:22 and 23. Had man not come to the knowledge of good and evil, he would have remained in the Garden of Eden. And by remaining in the Garden of Eden, the scope of his assignment would have been limited to that garden, which was contrary to the global vision that God had for him to dominate the entire earth. So after this moment, God chased him to go into the earth. So he had the opportunity to start interacting with the wild, to start interacting with the entire earth at this moment. Now, this also marked the beginning of a man being responsible for his own choices, because by coming to that knowledge of good and evil, it meant that he had now come to the position where his choices, his decisions, and all that comes with it, the consequences, were his own prerogative. He was no longer dependent on God for provision, protection, welfare, and all of that. He became responsible for everything that concerns him on the physical world, in the physical world. And that's why if you read Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 15 and 16, God said, "Today I present to you life and death. I present to you good and evil. I advise you to choose life and to live." So man from that time until now is responsible for his own choices. So you and I, friends, are responsible for our choices because of that very moment in Eden, where man came to that knowledge of good and evil. However, this was and still is the plan of God for man to share in his image and in his likeness. It is clear to us that only man among all of God's creation shares both God's image and in his likeness. Today, God is advising us that despite having the knowledge of good and evil, we have a responsibility to choose life and to live. Hebrews chapter 1 verse 9 says, "You love good and you hated evil. Therefore God, even your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness above your equals." Dear friends, we have a responsibility to love good and to hate evil. This is the sure way. This is our sure way of being loved by God, our Creator. I'd like to stop here at this moment. We can continue this conversation in the comment section. So friends, I invite you to follow me on my social media platforms, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and let's continue this conversation in the comment section. See you soon.